Minbaek woke up to someone's clear male voice pronouncing a single word right by his left ear. Minbaek's heart was pounding with that feeling when every beat echoed in the ribs. He looked into the darkness of the small room, a table with 3 unwashed mugs, stacks of textbooks on cognitive neuroscience, one dried-up Dracena by the window. He had been forgetting to water it for 2 months already. The gray walls of the student dormitory. Dim streetlight through the gap in the curtains. No one. He exhaled and rubbed his face with both hands for a long time, as if he were trying to erase something unnecessary. 26 years old, a postgraduate student of the Department of Cognitive Neuroscience at Seoul National University. A diagnosis of mild paranoid schizophrenia made at the age of 20 after the first acute episode in his first year. Since then, under control medication, regular appointments with psychiatrist Dr. Park Yoon, a symptom diary that he had kept with manic accuracy for 6 years already. Voices had happened before during bad periods, when skipping pills or with chronic lack of sleep. But now everything was normal. Pills taken yesterday evening, 7 hours of sleep, standard stress. He picked up the phone, looked out the window. Seoul was waking up as usual early buses, the first pedestrians in masks, the gray sky of March, which could not decide whether it was still winter or already spring. Minbaek decided that it was a hypnopompic hallucination, an auditory image on the border of sleep. It happens to everyone, especially under chronic stress. He opened the symptom diary app and made an entry 647. Single auditory episode upon waking. Content 1-word look. Possible trigger stress from submitting the interim report. Pills taken yesterday at 2200. Observe. Took the morning dose, made instant coffee, strong, without sugar, went to the university. At 14:23 that same day, 3 blocks from his building, the first rift opened. It looked like a crack in the air. Vertical, about 3 meters high, with ragged shimmering edges from which a cold, bluish-white light seeped from inside, not electric, not natural, some third kind with no name. People on the sidewalk first stopped and watched with that expression that comes before the brain manages to say, "Run just numbness." Several seconds of complete silence in the middle of city noise. Then the first creature appeared from the crack, and the brain finally said its word. People ran. Minbaek was 500 meters away. He was sitting on a bench in a small square between university buildings, working on a laptop, writing the 3rd chapter of his dissertation about the mechanisms of auditory hallucinations in paranoid schizophrenia. The irony of the situation would become obvious later. Right now, he simply raised his head when he heard screams. Saw panic. People running straight toward him and past him. And above the roofs of the neighboring building, something blue, shimmering, wrong. The phone exploded with notifications. Emergency alerts, news channels, messengers, anomalous phenomenon in the Gwanak area. Emergency services ask people to leave the territory. Unknown biological objects danger. Do not leave, said the voice by his left ear. Minbaek froze. The voice again. But already different, not the morning male one. This one was thinner, almost childish, with a shade of curiosity, completely inappropriate in the circumstances. And it was not simply speaking, it was directing. Minbaek felt it physically, a light pressure in the back of his head, like a palm that gently turns the head in the necessary direction. He stood up. His legs carried him by themselves, not away from the panic toward it. He understood this, stopped and said aloud to himself, quietly enough so passers-by would not hear, "This is a hallucination. I am going home." "Too late," the voice answered, and at that moment something inside him opened. It did not break exactly opened. As if all his life he had been hearing music through a thick wall, muffled, unclear, only low frequencies, and suddenly the wall collapsed. Sound crashed down from all sides at once, voices, images, streams of information that were not words, but were meanings. He fell to his knees right on the sidewalk, clutching his head. It lasted 3 seconds, then everything went quiet. And in the silence, an interface appeared. He saw it not as a screen before his eyes, as a layer over reality, translucent structures, lines, symbols, existing simultaneously in his head and around him. Like a hologram built directly into perception. The text was clear, simple, without decoration. Initialization complete. Awakened Minbaek. Class Rift Herald Unique. Rank E0. Special condition detected schizophrenic matrix active. Standard interface unavailable. System adapted to host. Your system is you. He looked at it for a long time, then whispered, "What is this?" No one answered. Then everyone answered at once. This was what no other awakened person in the world had. Others had a clean interface. Menu, statistics, quests, transparent windows over reality, convenient, understandable like a game interface. Minbaek's interface spoke, not in the sense of text on a screen, in the sense of voices. Many voices, each of which was a separate system module, a separate aspect of his power, and each of which sounded just as real, just as physical as any person nearby, indistinguishable from the symptoms of the illness, indistinguishable and at the same time completely different. There were 4 of them. The first voice, male, calm, monotone, like the narrator of a scientific documentary, never raising his tone. He was responsible for analysis and information. When Minbaek looked at a person, creature, or situation, this voice gave data characteristics, weaknesses, probabilities, patterns. Accurate, fast, emotionless. Minbaek privately named him Analyst. The second voice, female, quick, slightly irritated, like a person who was constantly being interrupted and had grown tired of it. She was responsible for tactics and survival. Calculated retreat routes, assessed threats, prompted movements, sometimes literally a fraction of a second before the danger became visible. Minbaek named her Tactician. The third voice, childish, curious, sometimes inappropriately cheerful, with the energy of a person who had found an interesting toy and could not calm down. He was responsible for abilities and their development, opened new skills, explained mechanisms, suggested experiments. His advice was either genius or catastrophic, roughly 50-50. Minbaek named him Kiddo. The fourth voice was silent almost always. When he spoke, it was important. Always important. Minbaek did not give him a name for a long time. Then he named him Depth. Depth seemed to know something the others did not know. What exactly was still unclear. The main fundamental problem, the one Minbaek lived with from the very first hour after awakening, was that all of this was absolutely indistinguishable from the symptoms of his illness. 4 voices, constant, clear, with personalities and opinions. This would have been an acute decompensation of schizophrenia. Any psychiatrist would have made exactly that diagnosis, and he could not say with certainty that the psychiatrist would have been wrong. He sat on the floor in the corner of the room, hugging his knees with his arms, and stared at the wall. Outside the window, sirens wailed. All of Seoul was in a state of emergency. The rift in the Gwanak area was closed by the combined efforts of the First Awakened and the military around 6 in the evening, but reports had already appeared about 2 new ones in Busan and Incheon. On the television, which he had turned on in the background, they were talking about anomalous spatial rifts and biological threats of unknown origin. An official term had not yet been developed. On the internet, the word rifts had already settled, and one more word which appeared quickly and stuck permanently awakened. Minbaek stared at the wall and gathered his thoughts. "All right," he said aloud quietly. "Speak one at a time." Silence. Then Analyst said evenly, "Your condition is stable. Anxiety level elevated, but not critical. Auditory background within the host's usual range. Functionality preserved. You call yourself part of the system," Minbaek said. "But how do I know that you are not just a voice? A symptom?" "You do not know," Analyst answered without a pause. "That is a correct observation." "Excellent answer." Tactician cut in quickly. "As always. Listen, we can discuss this until morning, or we can check. Go out tomorrow. Look at any person. I will give you information you could not have known. It is verifiable. This is science, your language. It may be unconscious information gathering," Minbaek objected. "My brain notices details peripherally and constructs a voice that voices them. That is a described mechanism." "Maybe," Tactician agreed, "or not." Check. Kiddo joyfully inserted, "You have an ability. Want to know?" "No, fine. I will tell you anyway. You are the Rift Herald. This means that you sense rifts before they open. And also you can do something with space." "Interesting." Minbaek closed his eyes. His psychiatrist, Dr. Park Yoon, saw him every 2 weeks. The next appointment was in 5 days. Should he go earlier? He thought about it seriously. 4 new stable voices with clear personalities, this was not something one could ignore from the position of medical responsibility toward oneself. But he was also a neuroscientist, and the neuroscientist in him demanded data before conclusions. He opened the diary and wrote March 22nd. Day of awakening. Possible options: first, acute psychotic exacerbation against the background of stress from the events with the rift. Second, real awakening with a unique system adapted to my neurological architecture. Way to distinguish: check whether the voices give verifiable information that I could not have known beforehand. Tomorrow experiment. Pills taken. Going to sleep. Depth said one word as he was falling asleep. Both options are true. Min Baek lay in the darkness and thought about it. Both options are true. He is ill and he is awakened. Not instead, not despite. Together. If this is so, this was the strangest and most important thought he had ever thought. He fell asleep. Min Baek chose a random student in the library for the experiment. A young guy, about 20, with a Seoul University backpack and wireless earphones, was reading something on a tablet by the window. Min Baek sat at the neighboring table, opened his laptop for appearances, and looked at him. Analyst, he said mentally. Analyze. Analyst answered, immediately male, approximately 19 to 21 years old. Pulse around 88 to 90 beats per minute, visible by the pulsation in the neck, slightly elevated relative to resting norm. Micro-expressions: anxiety, hidden by an effort of will. Defensive posture: shoulders drawn inward, torso slightly leaning forward. Probable conclusion: received unpleasant news within the last 2 to 3 hours and is trying to distract himself with studying. On the backpack, a keychain of the Red Cross donor organization. On the left wrist, a bracelet of an active blood donor. Min Baek looked at the student. Pulse: he really did study neurobiology and could theoretically estimate it by the neck, but not with such precision and not so quickly. Posture: he could have noticed himself. The bracelet: he had specifically not looked at the wrist before analyst said it. He looked now. The bracelet was there. He wrote down experiment 1. Analyst data: elevated pulse, anxiety, defensive posture, donor bracelet. Verified bracelet: yes. Posture: yes. Pulse: presumably yes, but cannot check precisely. Conclusion: ambiguous. Continuing. Then he stood up and went outside. Closed his eyes and tried to feel what Kiddo called the sense of rifts. Nothing. Wind, the smell of early spring asphalt, moisture, bitterish poplar, then something. Not a voice and not an image. Pressure. Directed pressure in the center of the chest, like a compass, only not magnetic but spatial. Something pulled toward the north, weakly, like the smell of coffee from the next room through a closed door. This is a rift, Kiddo said without waiting for a question. Small, unstable, almost closed by itself. 2 kilometers. You feel it because you are the herald. This is your basic ability. Other awakened do not feel this, almost no one. Min Baek stood and thought. He could not check it right now, but he memorized the sensation, direction, intensity, character of the pressure, entered it into the diary with the exact time and coordinates from memory. In the evening, the news reported that 2 kilometers north of the university, a small unstable Class F rift had been recorded, which closed by itself at 10:44. The time matched. Min Baek looked at this report for a long time, then wrote in the diary experiment. Rift sense verified, direction exact, closing time matched. This cannot be explained by unconscious information gathering. I could not have known about the rift in this place before the emergency services report. Conclusion: system is real. However, this does not mean that the voices are not simultaneously symptoms of the illness. Both options can be true. Continuing to take medication. Monitoring the border between system and decompensation. This was an important conclusion, possibly the most important one he would make in all this time. By this time, the Korean Awakened Guild was officially operating in Seoul, urgently organized, poorly structured, but existing. The government announced mandatory registration for all awakened. Officially registered, there were about 300 across the whole country. Real ones, according to analysts' estimates, 8 to 10 times more. Min Baek did not register. First understand, then decide. This was his rule in life. The compass in his chest led him to the industrial district. The rift opened at 23:40. Min Baek felt it 20 minutes beforehand, growing pressure. Almost physical pain in the area of the sternum. He came on foot, in a dark jacket with his phone in his pocket. The crack in the air at the entrance to an abandoned workshop was 1.5 meters high, small, active, shimmering. A creature was crawling out through it. Minbek had seen monsters from rifts only on videos in the news. In person, it was different, completely different. The smell metal, ozone, and something organic, alien. The sound a quiet, kittenous rustle. The creature resembled something between a boar and an insect squat with a bluish-gray shell with 3 pairs of eyes, each of which smoldered with dim red light. 4 legs, short and powerful. It had not yet seen Minbek. It was crawling out, sniffing the air, looking around. Class F, analysts said at once and calmly. Weakest type. Intelligence minimal. Attacks by smell and movement. Vulnerable points joints between shell segments, inodes. Speed within normal range for Class F. Single individual. Run, Tactician said briefly. Or try the ability, Kiddo said with that inappropriate joy of his. What ability? Minbek whispered. Rift. You can create a small tear in space, not as big as these small the size of a fist. For a short time, but if you hit exactly into the shell joint or nerve node, it will be very effective. I have never done this. You have been doing it your whole life, Kiddo said more quietly and seriously, which was unlike him. You thought it was a symptom. You saw edges in things where surfaces touch, where one passes into another, doorways, corners, seams. You pulled on these edges mentally, remember? Minbek froze, remembered. There had been one hallucination. Recurring since adolescence, he saw edges in things. Not clear contours, not auras, precisely edges, as if reality slightly layered apart at transition points. He had never told his psychiatrist about it in detail, simply mentioned it as visual artifacts. Considered it an insignificant symptom. The creature smelled him. Turned. Run, Tactician repeated. Harsher. Or pull the edge, Kiddo said. Minbek looked at the creature's back, at the joint between the first and second shell segments, and saw an edge there the same as he had always seen on doors and corners. Only on this creature it was brighter, almost glowing, as if the architecture of space around it was its own and visible. He pulled. The rift opened with a quiet sound like tearing thick fabric. Small, uneven, a little smaller than a palm, right in the shell joint. The creature jerked. It made a sound, not a scream and not a howl, something between them, from another dimension, alien and sharp. Collapsed onto its side, limbs scraping the floor. Minbek stood and looked at it. You hit a nerve node, analyst said. The creature is partially paralyzed, not killed. Regeneration will begin in approximately 8 minutes. Finishing it off? Tactician asked. No, then leave. He circled around the creature in a wide arc, left the workshop, dialed the emergency services line, and reported a monster in the industrial district, giving the exact address. Then he sat on a concrete curb by the road and did not move for a long time. His hands were not shaking. This surprised him. He expected trembling, an adrenaline reaction, panic. Instead, a strange silence inside. Fatigue, but not fear. Kiddo, he said quietly. Yes? How did you know about the edges? A long pause. Unusually long for Kiddo. Because I always knew. I was always with you. You thought I was the illness. A voice from the illness. But I was an ability that could not manifest fully until the space between worlds began to tear. And the others? Analyst? Tactician? Depth. Were they also always there? Yes. Minbek looked at the night sky above Seoul. Yellowish from the city light pollution. Not a single star. So my diagnosis, he began. Was and remains correct, analyst said evenly. You are ill, and you are awakened. This is not a contradiction. This is synthesis. Your schizophrenic matrix is the architecture on which your system is built. Another person would have received another system. You received this one. This is the price, Depth said. For the first time in several days, slowly, low, like the movement of something large in deep water. And it is a weapon. One and the same, both one and the other. Minbek accepted this. Not immediately, not easily, but accepted it. Not as a fact of joy. As a fact of reality that needed to be worked with. The system sent a notification. He saw it not as text on a screen, but as Kiddo's voice, which joyfully pronounced, rank increased. E moves to E+. New ability unlocked spatial shield passive type, automatically reduces damage from physical attacks by 20% through micro rifts at points of contact. Is this good? Minbek asked. Very, Kiddo answered. Good, Analyst confirmed. Do not relax, Tactician said. Depth remained silent. But Minbek had already understood when depth is silent. After an important moment, it is not emptiness. It is thinking over something big. The office of the Korean Awakened Guild was located in a former business center in the Yongsan District open space. Plastic chairs, fluorescent light, and nervous people. There were about 50 people in line. Different ones from high school students to men close to 60. One thing united them: confusion. People who had suddenly received something for which there were no words. Minbek sat in line and watched. Analyst worked continuously, without waiting for a request. This was his nature. Brief summaries on every person in the field of view. Woman about 35, nervousness, hands in constant motion, unconsciously twisting the metal handle of her bag probably. A matter manipulator. Guy about 22, calm, dissociation, combat type, saw something traumatic. Man about 50 by the far wall, military bearing, came not to register, to observe. This last observation was interesting. Minbek looked at the man more attentively. He was already looking at him. Catching his gaze, he nodded slightly, barely noticeably, the way people nod when they have recognized something common. His name was Kim Song-woo, former Special Forces Major, 47 years old. Awakened on the first day, at the same time as Minbek, in the same hour, in the same minutes, although they were on different ends of the city. His ability was crude and powerful kinetic strike, focused into a point, capable of piercing Class D Titan with one hit. No system, no interface, only power, and 20 years of discipline, which gave him what systems gave others. They met in the corridor while waiting for registration. You are nervous, Kim Song-woo said. No, you are lying. A little. Why? Minbek thought for a second. I have a specific situation with the system. Everyone has a specific one. I have no system at all, I just hit. That is also interesting. It is not interesting. It hurts. They were silent. Kim Song-woo looked at Minbek's backpack with the spines of textbooks sticking out. Scientist? Postgraduate student? Neuroscience? Then you understand what is happening? No one understands what is happening. But there is a theory? Analyst immediately issued 3 versions. Minbek chose the most honest one. Space between our world and something else has begun to tear. The cause is unknown. The creatures from there are not evil and not good in the human sense, just different. Some people react to this by awakening. Why exactly these people is unknown. Kim Song-woo nodded. Briefly and honestly, I like it. This was the beginning of an alliance that Minbek still did not know how to name with the correct word. Not friendship in the usual sense, something more specific. 2 very different people who had been thrown into the same strange place at the same time. 3 weeks after awakening, 3 rifts neutralized or marked for emergency services. One person I trust, Kim Song-woo. System active, stable, functional. The question I ask every day are the voices illness or system? The answer I accepted the separation does not matter. What matters is that they are accurate, they are consistent, they help. They are part of me. And the illness is part of me. One does not cancel the other. At the last appointment, Dr. Park Yoon asked about new episodes. I said there had been auditory ones, controllable. He adjusted the dose slightly. I did not tell him about the rifts in the system. For now, I need to understand more myself before explaining to others. Took the pills. Tomorrow, a new rift in the Mapo area. I can feel it already now, since evening. The pressure is stronger than usual, stronger than all previous ones. Kiddo says it is interesting. Tactician says it is dangerous. Analyst says class presumably B or higher. Depth is silent. This means something important. I do not yet know what, but soon I will know. Going to sleep. Need to get up early tomorrow. Continuing only Korean names. Continuous text. Approximately 4,000 words. Maximum retention. Minbek woke up from Tactician. Not from the voice, from the feeling. Tactician sometimes did not speak in words, but simply switched on alarm as if someone were turning the thermostat knob in his head a few degrees higher. Not panic, not fear, heightened readiness. Signal pay attention right now. He had learned to distinguish this in 2 weeks as well as he distinguished an ordinary alarm clock. He opened his eyes. ceiling. A crack in the plaster above the bed, which he had studied by heart. Dried up Drakina by the window, he still had not watered it after all. Gray morning light. What? He asked quietly. Phone. Tactician answered briefly. The phone lay on the table face down. He got up, took it. 14 missed calls from Kim Song-woo. 3 messages. The first at 4:30 Rift in Mappo. Big, Guild already there. The second at 5:15. Where are you? Answer. The third at 6:50. Come to the Guild. Now. Important. Min-baek looked at the time. Rift closed? He asked mentally. Judging by online news, yes, analyst answered. Closed around 6 in the morning. The Guild managed, but there are losses. 2 awakened injured, 1 in critical condition. Then why is he calling? Because something went wrong besides the losses, Tactician said. Min-baek took the pill without waiting for the reminder alarm, got dressed and went. The office was different. Not physically the same plastic chairs, the same fluorescent light, the same glass partitions. But the atmosphere had changed the same way the air changes before a storm, imperceptibly and inevitably. People spoke more quietly. Groups had broken into clusters and stood separately, not mixing. A line had gathered at the registration desk, but no one in it was talking. Kim Song-woo was waiting at the entrance. When he saw Min-baek, he simply nodded his head toward the corridor. Let's go, without words. They went into a small meeting room in the back of the office. Kim Song-woo closed the door. At night in Mappo, there was a Class B rift. He began without preamble, the first Class B in Seoul. The Guild sent 7 awakened. 1 is now in intensive care, Hain Yu-jung, 22 years old. Combat type, took a direct claw hit to the right side. 2 with fractures. They closed the rift, but with difficulty. I know, saw it in the news, Min-baek said. Why did you call me? Kim Song-woo looked at him for a second, then said, because you felt this rift yesterday evening already. I know you wrote me a message at 22:47. Tomorrow rift in Mappo, pressure stronger than usual. You were right. And if you had reported this to the Guild in time, they would have prepared better. 7 would not have been enough, but they at least would have known the class in advance. Min-baek was silent. Han Yu-jung may lose a kidney, Kim Song-woo added quietly. Not accusing, just a fact. It was hard to hear. Min-baek sat and thought about it without defending himself, without justifying himself inside. Just thought. Analyst was silent, understanding that right now analytics was not needed. I was not registered, Min-baek finally said. I know. I did not want to reveal the nature of my system. I know that too. But you are right. If my ability to sense rifts beforehand means that it is useful to other people, and I have no right to keep it to myself out of considerations of personal safety while others get claws in the side. Kim Song-woo nodded. You came to this yourself. Good. I did not want to pressure you. You pressured. A little. Normal. Sometimes it is necessary. Tactician said inside briefly and approvingly. Correct decision. Kiddo added enthusiastically. We are going to the Guild, officially. Analyst noted neutrally. This will increase the efficiency of ability application by an estimated 40 to 60% through coordination with other awakened. Depth remained silent. The head of the Seoul branch of the Korean Awakened Guild was Seo Min-jun, a man about 45, a former official of the Ministry of Security, with the face of a person accustomed to managing crises and not showing how much they exhausted him. He received Min-baek personally. This in itself was unusual. Registration was usually handled by administrative staff. They sat in an office with a view of the Hanggang. The river glittered in the morning sun, calm, indifferent to what was happening in the city around it. Seo Min-jun looked at Min-baek's personal file on the tablet, what Min-baek had filled out before the meeting. Name, age, university, ability. In the special conditions field, Min-baek had written briefly specific system interface. Discuss personally. Rift Herald, Seo Min-jun read. What does this mean practically? I sense rifts before they open, Min-baek answered. At least 20 minutes beforehand, sometimes several hours. I can determine direction, approximate distance, and with experience, it becomes more accurate probable class by pressure intensity. Seo Min-jun raised his head from the tablet. You felt yesterday's rift in Mappo since evening. From approximately 2,230. A long pause. Seo Min-jun placed the tablet on the table. Why did you not report it? Because I was not registered, and because I was not sure about the correctness of interpreting my sensations. Are you sure now? Enough to report and give you the opportunity to make decisions based on these data. Not enough to guarantee accuracy. Seo Min-jun looked at him with an expression that analysts characterized internally as evaluating reliability of the source, weighing risks, leaning toward cooperation. You mentioned a specific interface, Seo Min-jun said. What does this mean? Here it was. Min Baek knew that this question would come. He had thought about it all morning. To tell the truth means to reveal the diagnosis. Not to tell means to work with a lie at the foundation, which sooner or later creates problems more serious than the truth. I have mild paranoid schizophrenia under control with medication, he said evenly. My system adapted to this architecture. Instead of the standard visual interface, an auditory one, in the form of voices. 4 modules. Functionally, they are identical to standard system functions. Analysis, tactics, ability development, and 1 expanded module, whose nature I am still studying. All functions have been verified in practice. The office became quiet. Seo Min-jun's face did not change. This was a good sign a person knows how to control his reaction. He made a short note on the tablet, then asked, "Do medications affect abilities?" I have not noticed a negative effect. On the contrary, a stable medicated state, apparently, stabilizes the system as well. Can you function autonomously in field conditions? Yes. Do you have episodes of disorientation or loss of control? There has not been a single one since awakening. Before awakening there were, during periods without medication. Now the regimen is strictly observed. Seo Min-jun put the tablet aside. Min Baek, I accept your registration. Your ability is strategically valuable. As for your medical status, this is confidential information. The file will have a note-specific system interface, functionally verified, without details. Min Baek nodded, but Seo Min-jun added, and in this but there was that intonation that warns of something unpleasant ahead. Not everyone in the guild shares my approach. We have people with more rigid views on who has the right to be awakened. I understand. Then be ready. His name appeared in the database at 11:45. By noon, everyone who was in the office that day knew about him. Seoul is a big city, but the awakened community was small, and information in it spread at a speed that analysts would have assessed as exponential. Min Baek sat in the common hall, drank coffee from a vending machine, and read a briefing about the latest rifts that had been issued during registration. Kim Song-woo sat beside him and did the same. Tactician was scanning the hall in the background. This had become her habit. She never fully switched off in unfamiliar places. That one, Tactician said quietly, by the left column. Left. Min Baek raised his gaze. A man about 35. Large, broad-shouldered, with that physical confidence people have when they are used to their presence being felt in a room. He stood by the column, looking at Min Baek without making much effort to hide it. When their eyes met, he did not look away. Analysis, Min Baek asked mentally. Oh Dae-hyun, 36 years old, analyst answered. Rank C, one of the strongest in the Soul branch. Ability enhancement of physical parameters, speed, strength, regeneration. Participated in the night raid in Mapo. Minor cuts, already healed. Micro expressions right now: dislike, curiosity, something like readiness for confrontation. Probability of neutral interaction low. Oh Dae-hyun approached. Did not sit down, stood in front of them, arms crossed. You are the newcomer, he said. Not a question. Yes, Min Baek answered. Rift Herald. Heard about it. He paused, looking him over appraisingly from above. You felt Mapo yesterday evening? Yes, and did not report it. I was not registered. Han Yu-jung is losing a kidney now, Oh Dae-hyun said. The same fact as Kim Song-woo in the morning, but with a different intonation. Not as information, as an accusation. Min Baek did not answer immediately. Analyst inside, do not defend yourself. This is a trap, any answer will be used. Tactician. Or tell the truth without excuses, that disarms better than silence. I know, Min Baek said. That is bad. I decided to register exactly because of that. Oh Dae-hyun looked at him. I heard something else too, he said slowly. About your specific interface. People talk. Pause. Are you a psycho? In the hall nearby, several people who were pretending not to listen were clearly listening. Kim Song-woo beside him tensed slightly. Min Baek felt it at the edge of his vision. He did not interfere, but was ready. Min Baek placed the coffee on the table. I have paranoid schizophrenia under control with medication, he said evenly, without raising his tone. Yes? Oh, Dae-hyun's face did not change, but something in his posture became slightly harder. I see. He paused. So your voices are the system? Yes, or you think so. Functionally verified? Psychos also verify their hallucinations. That is called delusion. The hall grew quiet. Not completely, but noticeably. Min Baek looked at Oh Dae-hyun calmly. Inside, there were several layers at the same time. Tactician was calculating answer options. Analyst was analyzing Oh Dae-hyun. Kiddo was inappropriately thinking about something of his own. And Min Baek himself felt that quiet, cold anger that comes not from offense, but from understanding that the conversation is being conducted dishonestly. You are right that this is a legitimate question, Min Baek said. I have been asking it myself since the first day. The answer is yes, the voices function as a system, data accuracy is verified, abilities are real and externally observable, rift predictions have been confirmed by the emergency services. If you have specific doubts about my functionality, I am ready to discuss them. If you simply have an opinion about who has the right to be awakened, that is a different conversation. Oh Dae-hyun looked at him for a long time. Awakening is not an inclusive program, he finally said. We work in the field. One failure and people die. Agreed. That is why I work on the stability of my system every day. And you? Pause. Oh Dae-hyun turned around and left. Not with the look of someone defeated, with the look of a person who had finished the first round and was already thinking about the next one. Kim Song-woo said quietly, Not bad. He is not finished, Min Baek answered. I know, but for now, not bad. Tactician inside, he will go to Seoul in June. Try to officially challenge the registration. Prepare. Analyst probability 72%. Kiddo. But now everyone knows you. Depth remained silent. But Min Baek felt not a voice, just a sensation that Depth was thinking not about Oh Dae-hyun. About something else, something bigger. Min Baek came to Han Yu-jung. He did not know him personally, simply knew the name and the fact. Han Yu-jung, 22 years old, kidney at risk. Min Baek came not out of guilt or not only out of it. He came because he believed one needed to look at the consequences of one's decisions personally, not through news summaries. Han Yu-jung was lying in a hospital room alone. Young, truly very young, with that student face that had not yet managed to become adult. Pale, with an IV and a bandage across his entire right side. He was looking at the ceiling when Min Baek entered and did not turn his head right away. You are the Herald? Han Yu-jung asked. The one who felt Mappo in the evening? Yes. Kim Song-woo talked about you. Min Baek sat on the chair by the bed. How are you? The kidney will probably stay, Han Yu-jung said. Voice even not bitter, not angry, just tired. Doctors say if there are no complications. He was silent. You came to apologize? No. Han Yu-jung turned his head slightly. No, an apology will not change anything in your situation. I came to say that I decided to cooperate with the guild precisely because this happened. And that if my ability works the way I think, this will not happen again. At least, not because of my silence. A long pause. Han Yu-jung looked at him. A strange way not to apologize, he finally said. I know. But honest. I am trying. Han Yu-jung relaxed very slightly, barely noticeably. The tension around his eyes went away by a millimeter. Heard about Oh Dae-hyun, he said. About what happened in the hall? Already? Nothing in the guild stays secret longer than a few hours. Pause. He is not a bad person. It is just that he saw one unstable awakened in Busan lose control and kill 2 people from his group. That was 3 weeks ago. Classified information, but everyone knows. Min Baek did not know this. Analyst inside immediately important information. This explains Oh Dae-hyun's motivation, not simply prejudice, but experience of a specific event. I understand, Minbek said. But you are not that person, Han Yu-jung added. I feel it. I have the ability of intuitive evaluation of people part of the system. You are stable. It is visible. Thank you. No need. It is just data. Minbek smiled slightly. Han Yu-jung did too weakly but sincerely. At that moment, a girl appeared in the doorway. About 24, in jeans and a gray sweater, with a small bag over her shoulder. She stopped when she saw a stranger by Han Yu-jung's bed. Oh, sorry, I did not know you had a visitor, she said. Come in, Han Yu-jung said. This is Minbek, Harold. Then to Minbek. This is Choi Eun-ji. She healed me at night. She has a healing ability. Choi Eun-ji entered and looked at Minbek with that special expression he did not immediately understand. Not curiosity, not wariness, something more specific. As if she saw something others did not see. You are the Rift Herald, she said. Yes, I heard about you, bad or good? Different. She was silent, not taking her eyes away. Your energy is strange. In what sense? Healers see energy patterns. This is part of the ability. Most awakened have a single, whole pattern. Yours is multi-layered, as if several streams go parallel. I have never seen that before. Analyst inside immediately noted, this is external confirmation of the system's multi-layered nature. First, independent observation. It is connected to the nature of my system, Minbek said carefully. What is its nature? He looked at her. Analyst trust level insufficient for full disclosure. Tactician, but minimal honesty will create a better foundation for future interaction than evasion. Kiddo. She is good. I feel it. Complex, Minbek answered. I will explain when I am sure I understand it correctly myself. Choi Eun-ji nodded without offense, without pressure. All right, but I would like to talk to you, when there is time. What I see in your energy is not only strange, it is also significant. I do not know how to explain it more precisely right now. I will find you, Minbek said. He was leaving the hospital with the feeling that in one day, he had received more important information than in all the previous 2 weeks. Han Yu-jung fact about consequences. Oh Dae-hyun fact about resistance. Choi Eun-ji fact that his system is visible from the outside differently than he had assumed. Depth said when he stepped outside, for the first time in several days, she is right. You are significant, but not the way you think. Explain. Not now. When? When you see the next rift from inside. This was not the rift he had been feeling since evening. That one closed by itself before opening. This new one, unexpected, without warning. Simply pressure in the chest, sharp and acute, like an elbow strike under the ribs right in the middle of the night. Minbek woke up, sat up. 0310. The pressure was growing quickly faster than all previous ones. Class, he asked. B, possibly higher. Tactician answered immediately. Mapo, Hapjeong area. Opening in 7 minutes maximum. He was already dialing Kim Song-woo at the same time pulling on his jacket. Hapjeong, 7 minutes. Class B+, wake the guild. Kim Song-woo did not answer anything, simply hung up and began calling further. Minbek went outside. 3 in the morning, Seoul was sleeping, or pretending to. A taxi stopped after a minute. He named the street and said he would pay double if fast. While driving, analysts prepared data. Class B means a creature with intelligence above minimal. Tactical actions possible on its part. Probable types for this area by the pattern of previous Rift's hunting type. Orientation by heat and movement. Tactician. You should not be there first. Your role is navigation, not combat. Kiddo. But if you still have to, you now have spatial shield. I know, Minbek answered aloud. The driver glanced sideways in the mirror. Sorry. Thinking aloud. He got out of the taxi a block before the point instinctively, because the pressure had become almost physically painful. The rift opened at the very moment he turned the corner. This was different, completely different compared to Class F. The rift was wide about 4 meters, with ragged edges from which the same bluish-white light flowed, but brighter, denser. And the creature coming out of it was different, tall, about 2 meters, bipedal, with an elongated head without visible eyes, and with 2 pairs of front limbs, the upper ones long, with claws, the lower ones short for grabbing. It moved smoothly, almost beautifully, with that dangerous grace that things evolved exclusively for hunting have. But Minbek was not looking at the creature. He was looking at the rift, because for the first time in all 3 weeks, he saw what was inside. Before, rifts had just been cracks with light. Now, from a distance of 3 meters, he saw depth, and in the depth, not darkness and not emptiness. There was something structured there. Patterns. As if beyond the rift, there was a space with its own architecture, not chaotic, but organized. Alien, incomprehensible, but organized. "Analyst," he whispered. "Do you see this?" "I see what you see," Analyst answered. Structure inside the rift, not previously observed? Presumably you are seeing this for the first time because you are close enough and have been observing rifts long enough for perception to develop. What is it? Unknown. Insufficient data. The creature turned toward him. Minbek did not run. He stood and looked at it, and for the first time in all these weeks felt something strange. Not fear, not readiness. Something like recognition. As if he had seen this creature before, not physically, but in some other sense. "Depth," he said quietly. "You said when I see the rift from inside?" "Here it is." A long pause. Then Depth spoke. "Truly, for the first time at length, slowly, with that weight of every word that belongs to things that have waited a long time for their moment. Rifts do not open by accident," Depth said, "and random people do not awaken. You are the herald. This means not only that you sense rifts, it means that you are part of the reason they open." Minbek stood in nighttime soul 3 meters from a Class B monster and listened. Your schizophrenia is not the system adapting to the illness. It is the opposite. What people called your illness was an attempt by your perception to register what had always existed nearby. Rifts always existed small, invisible, closed. You always felt them. The voices are what came from there, long before awakening. The creature took a step toward him. "And one last thing," Depth said. "The herald is not an observer. The herald is a key. Rifts open wider where you are, not because you attract them, because you are the border between two spaces. You have always been it." At that moment, Kim Song-woo ran up from behind with 2 more awakened from the guild. They saw the creature and immediately began acting. Kim Song-woo delivered a kinetic strike. The creature flew back a meter. Minbek stood and looked at the rift, the border between 2 spaces. He thought about the fact that his illness, the very one he had treated for 6 years, controlled with pills and diaries and regular appointments with Dr. Park Yoon, was not an error of his neurochemistry. It was perception of the real. Distorted, uncontrolled, frightening, but perception of the real. This was the strangest thought he had ever thought. Stranger than everything before it. The Class B creature fell Kim Song-woo, finished it off with a 3rd strike. The rift began to close by itself slowly, with the same sound of tearing fabric, only in reverse. Minbek looked at it until the last moment. And in the very last second, when the edges of the rift came together, he saw there, in the depth, something that was not a structure and not a creature. Something that looked back. The Class B rift in Hapjeong closed. Kim Song-woo and 2 awakened from the guild handled it. No losses. My role navigation and timely warning. It worked. Depth spoke, writing down verbatim while I remember every word. Rifts always existed. I always felt them. What was called my illness was perception of the real through the wrong filter. I am the herald not as an observer, as a border. I do not know what to do with this. This is the most important thing I have learned since awakening, and the most frightening. Tomorrow appointment with Dr. Park Yoon. I will tell him about the rifts. It is time. He must know. Not everything, but enough for us to understand together how to hold the border between system and illness, when it turns out they were never different things. One more thing. In the last second when the rift was closing, there was something there that looked back. At me. Intentionally. Choi Eun-ji said you are significant, but not the way you think. Depth said you are the key. I am the border. What is on the other side and why was it looking? Took the pills. But today, for the first time since awakening, I am not sure they will help with what I saw. Going to sleep, I will try. Continuing only Korean names, continuous text, approximately 4,000 words, maximum retention. Dr. Park Yoon's office was small and deliberately calm. Beige walls, 2 armchairs, a low table with a box of tissues, and a small succulent alive, unlike Min Baek's trachina. No official desk between doctor and patient, no white coats. Park Yoon made a point of working in ordinary clothes, said that a white coat creates a distance that interferes with honest conversation. Min Baek had been going to him for 5 years and in that time had managed to appreciate this philosophy. Park Yoon was about 50, soft-spoken, attentive, with that special manner of listening when a person is not simply waiting for a pause to answer, but truly hears. Min Baek trusted him not blindly, but deeply. He came in and sat down. Park Yoon looked at him attentively, as always in the first seconds of an appointment, when he forms the initial picture of the state. "You have not slept normally," Park Yoon said. "Not a question. 3 to 4 hours the last few days. Pills? Taking them strictly? No missed doses? Voices?" Here it was. Min Baek was silent for a second, not out of fear, but from that feeling when you begin an important conversation and want to begin it correctly. "I want to tell you something," he said. "Completely. I should have done it earlier, but first I wanted to understand myself. Now I understand enough." Park Yoon nodded and leaned back slightly in the chair signal speak. "I am listening. I am in no hurry." Min Baek told everything, from the first voice at 6:47 in the morning on March 22nd, awakening, interface, 4 modules, verification experiments, rifts, night battle in the industrial district, the guild, Oh Dae-hyun, Han Yu-jung in the hospital, Choi Eun-ji and her observation about multi-layered energy, and finally what Depth said at night by the rift in Hapjeong, and what looked out from the closing crack. He spoke for 20 minutes without stopping. Park Yoon did not interrupt even once. When Min Baek finished, the office was quiet. The succulent on the table stood unperturbed. Seoul was noisy outside the window. Park Yoon looked to the side for a long time, not away from Min Baek, but simply into space, which for him meant active thinking. Then he looked at him. "Did you bring verification data?" he asked. Min Baek took out his phone and showed screenshots of news reports about rifts with timestamps, next to his entries in the symptom diary with the same timestamps, made earlier. Direction, distance, class, and subsequent confirmation from emergency services. 6 cases in a row. Park Yoon looked at it for a long time. "You are a neuroscientist," he finally said. "Yes." "Then you understand what I will say next." "Say it." "This does not unequivocally prove either option. Systematic coincidence of predictions with reality is a strong argument in favor of a real ability. But in certain forms of psychosis, unconscious aggregation of sensory data is possible, which creates the illusion of foresight." He paused. "However, I have worked with you for 5 years. I know the pattern of your decompensations. What you describe, structured, consistent, verifiable, this does not look like decompensation. It looks like adaptation." "That is exactly the word analyst used," Min Baek said quietly. "Then he is right." Park Yoon folded his hands. "Min Baek, I will tell you as a doctor and as a person who has been thinking about this since the rifts began. Awakening changes neurochemistry. All awakened have changes in neurotransmitter systems. This has already been documented. In your case, these changes were imposed on an already altered architecture. The result could have gone in any direction, destructive or adaptive. Judging by what you describe, it went in an adaptive one. But this does not mean the risks have disappeared." "I understand. What do you want from me?" Min Baek had thought about this the whole way here. "I want you to help me hold the border between what is system and what is illness, because Depth said they were never fully different things. And I do not know how dangerous it is not to know this border exactly." Park Yoon nodded slowly. "That is an honest request, and a complex one." Pause. "Come once a week instead of every 2. More frequent contact is more important now. And keep a diary not only of symptoms, but of system events beside them, in one place, so that we both see the pattern." "Already doing it." "Of course you are," Park Yoon said, with that slight shade of warmth that appeared in him rarely and was therefore noticeable. "You always do. That is one of your main strengths." Min Baek left the office with that strange light feeling that comes after an honest conversation, not because things became clearer, but because he stopped carrying something alone. Tactician inside quietly. Good. Life pretended to continue normally. Min Baek went to the department, worked on the dissertation. The third chapter now read differently than when he had started it. He wrote about the mechanisms of auditory hallucinations and thought that the mechanism he was describing was possibly not pathology, but an unrecognized way of perception. Thought whether he should insert this into the text. Decided that for now, the scientific community was not ready for this, maybe in another 5 years. Choi Eun-ji wrote in the Guild Messenger briefly, "When can you talk?" They met in a cafe near the hospital where she worked part-time officially as a nurse, unofficially as a healer for awakened who had been injured in rifts. She arrived first, sat with tea and read something on her phone. When Min Baek entered, she raised her head and again looked at him with that special expression he had already remembered. As if she saw something over the ordinary picture. "Your layers are more active today," she said instead of greeting. "Good afternoon," Min Baek answered. "Sorry." "Good afternoon." "Coffee?" She was already raising her hand, calling the waiter. "Yes, thank you." He sat down. "What did you want to tell me?" Choi Eun-ji folded the phone on the table. "I have been a healer for 3 months. Since awakening, I have worked with 16 awakened injuries, system overloads, several cases of acute destabilization after heavy rifts. I see the energy pattern of each one." She paused. "None of them had what I see in you, multi-layeredness." "Yes, but not just multi-layeredness. Your layers, they are not parallel, they interpenetrate, as if several versions of one signal go simultaneously, slightly shifted in phase. This creates an interference pattern." Min Baek looked at her. "Are you a physicist?" he asked. "No, but I read. After I saw you, I read everything I could find about wave interference. It was the best metaphor." She took the cup. "Do you know what happens at points of constructive interference?" "Amplification." "Yes, and at points of destructive?" "Cancellation." "Exactly." She looked at him. "Your layers sometimes amplify one another, and sometimes cancel. And I think that what you call illness is destructive interference, when the layers fall into antiphase and cancel normal perception. And what you call system is constructive, when they coincide in phase and amplify." Min Baek was silent for a long time. This was the best model of all he had heard. Better than adaptation, better than synthesis, because it explained not only what was happening, but also why sometimes good and sometimes bad. The same architecture, different result depending on the state of phases. "Pills," he said slowly, thinking aloud. "They stabilize the phases. They do not remove the layers, they stabilize their relative position. That is why while taking medication, the system works stably." "Exactly," Choi Eun-ji said. "I think the same." Pause. "Min Baek, I want to try something. Not now when you are ready. I can affect the energy pattern. I have done this with overloaded, awakened, relieved, acute states. I do not know whether it is possible to stabilize your phases directly, but I want to try." "Could it be dangerous?" "I do not know. Honestly, I do not know." "I have never worked with such a pattern. Then I will think about it." "Of course." They were silent. The waiter brought coffee. Min Baek took the cup and looked out the window street. People an ordinary Seoul day. It seems strange that most of these people do not know, and perhaps will never know what is happening inside some of those who pass by. "Choi Eun-ji," he said. "Eun-ji. Just Eun-ji." "Eun-ji. You said significant, but not the way I think. Back then, did you mean interference?" She shook her head. "No, I meant something else." Pause. "When I look at your pattern, I see not only you, I see something else. As if your pattern resonates with something external. With the rifts." Depth said, "I am the border." She looked at him. "Depth is one of your voices?" "One of the system modules, the rarest one. Speaks only when it is important." And he said border. "Yes." "Then he knows more than he says," Eun-ji said quietly. "Because what I see is not just resonance, it is two-way resonance. The rifts respond to you, and you respond to them, like two tuned strings." Kiddo inside said very quietly, almost in a whisper which was completely uncharacteristic for him. "She is right." Min Baek was at the department when he felt it. The pressure came not gradually at once, at full force like a blow. He grabbed the edge of the table, knocked over a stack of papers. The postgraduate student beside him, Lim Jung-soo, 24, who knew nothing about rifts or Minbaek or the guild, asked, frightened, "Are you all right?" "Yes," Minbaek said, voice even. The pressure dropped sharply. "It will pass." He was already dialing Kim Song-woo with his other hand. "Class?" The latter answered instead of greeting. "A," Minbaek said. "First class A." "I feel the difference. It is incomparable with B. And it is opening here." "Where here?" "At the university. At my university. Natural Sciences building, I think. 10 minutes maximum. Evacuation? Immediately. There are about 300 people here." He put down the phone and turned to Lim Jung-soo. "Listen to me carefully. A rift will open in the building. Not in a few hours, in a few minutes. You need to leave right now and tell everyone you meet to leave too. Say it is a drill alarm. Say anything, just get people out." Lim Jung-soo looked at him. "Are you serious?" "Absolutely." Something in Minbaek's voice or in his face worked. Lim Jung-soo stood up and left. Minbaek heard how a few seconds later in the corridor, he began shouting something about an alarm and evacuation. Minbaek went the other way deeper into the building, where the pressure pulled. Tactician immediately wrong direction. Analyst evacuation of people requires understanding the exact opening point to block the creature's escape routes. His goal is justified. Tactician was silent for a second. Accepted, but no closer than 20 meters. The rift opened in the central atrium, a large space between 4 buildings, with a glass roof and benches. Usually it was crowded. Now almost empty, several people were running toward the exits. One guard stood by the wall and looked at the crack in the air with an expression of absolute incomprehension. "Leave," Minbaek said to the guard. The man looked at him, then at the rift, then back at him and left. The rift was wide, 4 meters, almost 5. From it came light, not bluish like class F and B, but white, almost blinding, and a sound low, vibrating, which Minbaek felt in his teeth. He looked at it, and again as in Hapjeong he saw depth, the structure inside, but now closer and clearer. The patterns there inside were active, moving, and among them was the thing that was looking. It remembered him. This was impossible in the ordinary sense of the word. A creature from another dimension cannot remember a person from this one. But Minbaek felt it as clearly as he felt the pressure of rifts. A gaze from there directed, conscious, recognizing. "Depth," he said quietly. "It knows who I am." "Yes," Depth answered. "What does it want?" "To talk." A Class A creature came out of the rift. It was nothing like what he had seen before. Not a chitinous shell, not hunting claws. Tall almost up to the ceiling of the atrium, 3.5 meters. Humanoid in form, but fluid, as if the outlines were not fixed finally. Translucent, with the same patterns inside that Minbaek had seen in the depth of the rift. It did not attack. It stopped and stood, and looked at Minbaek. Tactician, do not move. Analyst behavior atypical for all known classes. Aggression absent, possibly intelligent creature. Kiddo was silent. Depth was silent too, but differently than usual. Not because he had nothing to say, because he was waiting. The creature opened what was a mouth or what performed that function and produced a sound. Not a word. Not human language. But Minbaek understood it. Not through ears, through the same sense through which he felt rifts. Through the very multi-layered architecture that Yoonji saw as an interference pattern. The meaning came directly without words, like a mathematical statement that does not need to be formulated because it is simply true. The meaning was, "You are the herald. We have waited." Minbaek stood in the center of the empty university atrium under the glass roof, 20 meters from a Class A creature from another dimension, and thought that some things do not fit into any system of concepts, neither neuroscience nor psychiatry, nor even the logic of the guild system. Waited for what? He asked aloud. The meaning came again, direct and cold as a fact. The border is weakening. Rifts are not an attack. Rifts are a signal. The herald must understand. At that moment, Kim Song-woo and 4 awakened from the guild burst into the atrium. The creature looked at them, then back at Minbaek, and in the last moment before stepping back into the rift, it transmitted one final thing. A big rift is coming soon. Do not close it. Go through. Then it left. The rift closed. The atrium became quiet. Kim Song-woo stood beside Min Baek and looked at the place where there had just been a crack in the air. It left on its own? He asked. Yes, it did not touch you. No, why? Min Baek thought about how to answer, how to explain this so that it would sound plausible and not like a symptom. Analyst was silent. Tactician was silent. Kiddo was silent. Depth was silent. All four were silent at the same time for the first time since awakening. Because it did not come for that, Min Baek finally said. Seo Min-jun gathered all the senior awakened of the Soul Branch. 12 people in a meeting room with a view of the hangang. Min Baek was there as a witness to the event at the university and the only person who had understood anything from what had happened. He told everything. That he had seen structure in the depths of the rifts. That the Class A creature had not attacked. That it had transmitted 3 things: rifts are not an attack, but a signal. The border is weakening. Soon there will be a big rift that must not be closed. In the room there was that special silence that happens when people hear something that contradicts everything they considered true. Oh Dae-hyun spoke first. You communicated with the Class A creature, he said, and interpreted its signals. Yes, through your system. Yes, that same system, which you have because you stopped. Was silent. Because you have specific neurology. Yes. Oh Dae-hyun looked at the table in front of him. Not at Min Baek at the table. Wrong time. Then he said quietly, with that effort it takes to say aloud something you do not want to believe but must. 3 weeks ago I thought you were a weak link, that your system was unreliable. Pause. 3 weeks ago in Busan, an awakened with an unstable system killed 2 of his own. I saw it. I could not separate one from the other. I know, Min Baek said. Wait. Oh, Dae-hyun raised his head. I am not finished. Another pause, heavy. If what you are describing is true, if rifts are a signal, not an attack, then the only person in this room who could understand it is you. Because your system is arranged so that you hear what others do not hear. He looked straight at Min Baek without evasion. I was wrong, not in my concerns in applying them to you. The room was quiet again. Min Baek did not answer immediately, not because he did not know what to say, because this was one of those moments when it is more correct to let the words stay in silence for a little while. Thank you, he finally said, simply and without excess. Oh Dae-hyun nodded. Once. Briefly. The subject was closed, not forgotten, but closed on both sides. Seo Min-jun coughed and brought everyone back to the question. A big rift that must not be closed, he repeated slowly. This is either the most important information we have received since the rifts first appeared, or a trap. Or both, Kim Song-woo said. How do we tell the difference? Everyone looked at Min Baek, he thought. Analyst gathered data, tactician calculated scenarios. Kiddo was silent, which had become his pattern in truly serious situations. Depth was silent too, but differently, with that deep silence that was not emptiness. We cannot, Min Baek said. Not with the data we have now. Pause. But I can try to get more data. Yoonji sees my pattern. Perhaps she will see something in the rift itself if I am nearby. And Depth knows more than he says. I need time and possibly another contact with what was in the atrium. Another contact, Seo Min-jun repeated. You understand that this sounds like a proposal to intentionally interact with a creature from another dimension. I understand. And are you ready? Min Baek looked out the window. The hangang glittered in the sunset, light pink, gold, calm. Beautiful as always, indifferent as always. I am the Rift Herald, he said. The border between 2 spaces. This is what I am, not what I chose. The question is not whether I am ready. The question is how to do it correctly. Seo Min-jun looked at him for a long time. All right, he finally said. Then we do it correctly. 30th day. A lot happened in one day. Oh Dae-hyun said what he said. It cost him effort, I saw that. I respect it. A person who changes his opinion under the pressure of evidence does not lose dignity, he gains it. The creature said the border is weakening. Rifts are a signal. Go through the big rift. I am thinking about this. If I am the border, then what does it mean to go through? Cross to the other side? Become a passage? Or simply understand what is there? Depth is still silent. This is more frightening than anything else this month. When depth is silent for a long time after something important, it means he is waiting for the moment when the words will be precise. He does not speak approximately. Never. Yoonji wrote in the evening, "You are thinking about going through the rift. I did not tell her about this. She just wrote. I answered, how do you know? She answered, your pattern changed today. Became more. Directed. Took the pills. I will try for 7 hours of sleep. Tomorrow conversation with Yoonji, then possibly with depth if he is ready. The big rift will come. I will feel it before everyone, as always. The only question is when, and what will be on the other side. Continuing only Korean names, continuous text, approximately 4,000 words, maximum retention." The office was small and not especially official, more like a utility room that Yoonji had adapted for working with Awakened. A couch, 2 chairs, a small table with a thermos of tea. On the wall, a printed diagram of energy patterns which she had drawn herself, by hand, because such diagrams did not exist anywhere else. No one before her had systematized what healers see. Min Baek sat on the couch. Yoonji stood beside him, not close, at arm's length, and looked at him with that special expression of concentrated attention that appeared on her face every time she worked. "Relax," she said. "Do not close yourself off. I am not closing myself off." "You are." "A little. When you are nervous, the layers come together more tightly like a defense. It is automatic." Pause. Think about something neutral. About what? About tea? About the dried-up Drakina? About anything without emotional charge. Min Baek thought about the dried-up Drakina. It had been standing by the window for the 3rd month already and refused to die completely. One dry leaf sometimes changed its angle slightly, as if it had still not made a decision. He kept forgetting to water it and kept feeling something between guilt and respect for its stubbornness because of that. "Better," Yoonji said. The layers moved slightly apart. "Hold that." She slowly raised her hand without touching him. Simply in the space between them, and Min Baek felt something. Not physical touch, something subtler. Like a weak electric current, only not along the skin, but deeper, in that part of perception, which he had once called a symptom. Analyst inside registered immediately external energetic influence. Soft, non-directed probing, not interference. System stability not disrupted. "I see you," Yoonji said quietly. Not to him, to herself, like a person who voices observations aloud in order to fix them. 4 streams. The first clean, even cold. The second fast with sharp edges. The third warm, chaotic, but not destructive. The 4th. She fell silent. "What?" Min Baek asked. "The 4th stream is not like the other 3. Those 3, they are yours. They are from you." Pause. "The 4th comes from outside." The room became quiet. Min Baek did not move. "Explain," he said carefully. "The 3 streams are your system, your voices. They are born inside you, even if they feel separate." Yoonji spoke slowly, choosing words. "The 4th stream enters you from outside. Like a signal received by an antenna, it is not generated by the antenna, it only passes through it." "Depth," Min Baek said. Depth inside did not answer. But something changed, a barely noticeable change in the background sensation that always accompanied the 4th voice. As if someone in the next room had slightly shifted their posture. "So he is not part of my system," Min Baek said. It sounded like a question, but was a statement. "Not in the sense the other 3 are," Yoonji answered. "He uses your architecture as a channel. But the source is outside, from the other side of the rifts, presumably." Min Baek sat and thought about it. For 6 years he had heard depth rarely, importantly, never inaccurately. For 6 years he had thought it was the most mysterious symptom of his illness. Then decided it was the deepest module of the system. And now it turns out that it is neither one nor the other. It is a voice from the other side of the rifts which uses his neurological architecture as a radio receiver. Tactician said inside dryly. This explains the accuracy of his warnings, and why he speaks only when it is important. He speaks when that side wants us to know something specific. Analyst added, this also means that everything Depth said is information from intelligent beings on the other side of the rifts, intentionally transmitted. Kiddo quietly. They have been talking to you for 6 years. Min Baek closed his eyes. Yeonji, he said, can you try to stabilize the phases? What you talked about. Now? Yes, I want to do it now while I understand what is happening, while the information is fresh. She was silent. All right, but I will stop at the first sign of instability. Agreed? Agreed. She stood slightly to the side, raised both hands. Again, that sensation only stronger, not probing, but a careful touch to something inside his perception. Minbek held the image of the Drakena. Dried up, stubborn, one leaf. I see a phase shift between the first and second stream, Yeonji said. Small, I will try to align it. What happened next was difficult to describe in ordinary words. It was like when your shoulder has been hurting for a long time, you get used to it, stop noticing, it becomes background. And then someone presses correctly on the right point. Something falls into place and you suddenly understand how long it had been hurting. Because now it does not hurt. Analyst and tactician. The first and second streams suddenly became a little cleaner. Not louder and not quieter. Cleaner. As if interference had been removed. Better? Yoonji asked. Yes, Minbek said. Yes, much. Holding? Holding. She lowered her hands. This is temporary for now, I do not know how long. An hour, maybe 2. But if repeated regularly, perhaps it will become stable. Neuroplasticity works in awakened too. Minbek opened his eyes and looked at her. Thank you, no need. This is interesting for me too, she took a cup of tea. Do you feel anything from depth now? No. Quiet. But a different silence, not waiting. Just quiet. Phase stabilization may have affected the channel too, she thought. This can be good or bad. If the channel is important for receiving information from that side, bad? Yes, pause. Minbek, you are going to enter the big rift. Not a question. Yes, then I need to be nearby. I must see your pattern at the moment of entry. If something goes wrong with the phases, I will have time to react. It is dangerous for you. Probably. But I am a healer. Danger is part of the work. She looked at him directly. And besides, it is important for me to know what is there. No less than for you. Minbek looked at her. Analyst inside calmly. Her presence increases the probability of successful return. Her ability works on contact. She can keep the phases stable even in non-standard conditions. Tactician accepted. But she must fully understand the risks. All right, he said. But first talk to Kim Song-woo. He must know everything. The big rift was in no hurry. 5 days after the conversation with Eun-ji. Minbek lived in expectation, not anxious, but that special state of focused waiting that happens before an important exam. He knew that the feeling would come at night. Big rifts, judging by the pattern, tended toward the night hours. He went to bed with his phone at maximum volume and woke up every 2 to 3 hours, checking the inner compass. At 02:30 on April 25th, the compass broke loose. Not just pressure, this was something fundamentally different. The pressure of all previous rifts had been directed from point A to point B, like a finger pressing. This was non-directed. It was as if the space around him itself changed pressure, like an atmospheric front. Not from somewhere, from everywhere, and at the same time from nowhere. Minbek sat up, grabbed his phone and wrote in the group chat now. Do not know the point everywhere. Big. Then dialed Kim Song-woo. I feel it. Where? I do not know. This is different, not like before. It is not in one point. Pause. Is this bad? I do not know. Wake everyone. Go to the university, I feel it is strongest there. But this is approximate. We are going. Minbek got dressed. Took the pill, this was important. This was a rule, this was an anchor. Took his jacket, phone, small flashlight, a habit he had picked up after the second rift. Stopped at the door. Depth, he said. Silence. Then slowly, with that special wait time. You knew when it would be. Yes, why did you not say earlier? Because you had to come to this yourself. A herald who enters because he was told is not the same as a herald who enters because he understood. The difference is important. For whom? For what is on the other side. And for you. Minbek opened the door and went out into nighttime Seoul. The rift opened not in the atrium in the open space between the main building and the library. A wide plaza that students used as a place to rest during the day, benches, trees, paths. Now empty, quiet, lit only by street lamps. The rift was enormous. Min-Baek had seen rifts of different sizes from 1.5 meters to 5. This one was 10 meters, maybe more. The edges did not shimmer, they pulsed, slowly and rhythmically like breathing. The light from inside was not white and not blue, it changed, passing through shades for which Min-Baek could not find names. The sound was different too, not vibration in the teeth, but something he heard not with his ears. Kim Song-woo and 5 awakened of the guild were already here arrived 3 minutes earlier. Yoon-ji stood slightly aside and looked at Min-Baek with the expression he had already learned to read. She saw his pattern and evaluated it. Oh Dae-hyun stood at the edge of the group. When he saw Min-Baek, he nodded. Briefly, like back then in the meeting room. It meant, I am here, I will cover you. Seo Min-jun arrived with 2 senior guild advisors, looked at the rift, then at Min-Baek. Is this it? Seo Min-jun asked. Yes, are you sure? Yes, what do you feel? Min-Baek thought how to answer precisely. It is waiting, he finally said. Like an open door waits for someone to enter through it. This is not a threat and not a trap in the sense we usually understand these words. It is an invitation. But an invitation can be dangerous not because it is intentionally made dangerous, but because where it leads may be dangerous in itself. Seo Min-jun looked at him for a long time. We have no reason to trust this, he said. I know, and no reason not to trust it. I know that too. You made a decision, yes. Seo Min-jun nodded, neither approving nor forbidding, accepting it as a fact. Yoon-ji approached Min-Baek, stood beside him. Pattern stable, she said quietly. Phases even. Better than ever. Pause. I will hold contact as long as I can. When you enter, I do not know how far my influence will reach. But I will try. Thank you. Kim Song-woo stood to Min-Baek's left. I am going with you, he said. No, this is not a question. Kim Song-woo. Min-Baek looked at him. Your ability is physical, kinetic strike. There, inside, we do not know the physical laws. You may end up helpless. But I will not. My ability works with space. It does not depend on the physics of this world. And still. Besides, Min-Baek continued, if something goes wrong and the rift begins to close, someone must remain outside to coordinate. You are the best for that. A long pause. Kim Song-woo looked at him with the expression analysts would describe as a person who understood the argument and disagreed with it emotionally, but accepted it rationally. 15 minutes, Kim Song-woo said. If you are not back in 15 minutes, I go after you. 20, 17, fine. Min-Baek turned to the rift. Up close, it was even bigger. The edges pulsed slowly, that breathing rhythm he had noticed from afar. Up close was almost physically tangible. The warmth from the rift, not heat, rather the temperature of something alive. The light inside continued to pass through shades without names. Analyst, Min-Baek said quietly. Yes, record everything, every detail, regardless of what happens, always. Tactician, listening, work on instincts. There may not be time for calculation there. I understand. Kiddo. Kiddo was silent for a second, then said for the first time without a joyful intonation, seriously and quietly, I am with you, as always. As for 6 years? I know. Min-Baek took a step forward. It was not like stepping through a door. It was like stepping through the surface of water, a moment of resistance, then a complete change of medium. Not painful, not cold, not dark, just different. He stood inside and outside simultaneously. There was no. Only here. The space was enormous. Not in the geometric sense, it had no obvious boundaries, no ceiling or floor in the familiar understanding. But it was not infinite, it was structured. Those patterns he had seen from outside in the depths of rifts here, they were everywhere. Like architecture built not from stone or metal, but from space itself. Lines, intersections, nodes, all of it was simultaneously static and alive. Light was everywhere and from nowhere specific. The sound he heard, not with his ears here, was stronger. Not louder, but richer. As if before he had heard a monophonic version, and now found himself inside a full sound space. Analyst worked continuously, fixed, described, compared. Tactician was silent here, there were no obvious threats, no movement, nothing to which one could react tactically. Kiddo watched Min-Baek, felt his presence as quiet amazement, sincere and undisguised. Depth, Min-Baek said. Here, Depth answered. His voice here was different, not internal, but around, as if he had stopped being a voice in the head and become the voice of the space. You are from here. I am the part of you that has always been tuned to this place. Pause. This is not a contradiction. Is a radio receiver part of the signal it receives or not? No, and yes. Because without a receiver, the signal exists, but exists nowhere specifically. With a receiver, it exists at a point. You are the point. Movement, not fast, not aggressive. A smooth shift of what had been structure toward him. Patterns in the space gathered, concentrated, took shape. Not the same as the creature in the atrium, another one. Simpler and more complex at the same time. As if the atrium creature had been a physical representation, a body, and what was now was something more direct. Meaning came before the form had fully taken shape. Harold, you came. Yes, Minbeck said aloud. His voice here sounded strange, too specific, too physical, like a recording of a living voice in an empty hall. We have been speaking with you for a long time. You did not always hear. Now you hear. 6 years, Minbeck said. You spoke to me for 6 years through what I considered a symptom of illness. We spoke through what allowed speech. Your architecture is the only one we found open enough. Others are closed. Your minds build walls very tightly. Analyst inside. This explains the rarity of Harold's, not ability architecture of perception, schizophrenia as openness, not as pathology. The border is weakening, Minbeck said. You said that. What does it mean? Two spaces have always existed side by side. The border between them is not a wall, it is alive. It is supported from both sides. From the side of your world, it is supported by Harold's unconsciously, simply by their existence. There are fewer Harolds. Open architectures are closing. Your medicine does this, and this is right for your people, but the border suffers. Minbeck considered this. Rifts are the border tearing where it is not supported. Yes. The creatures that come out, they do not attack intentionally. They end up in your world accidentally through tears. This is inconvenient for everyone. Inconvenient, Minbeck repeated. Han Yu-jung is losing a kidney. This is inconvenient. Pause. Something in the patterns around changed barely noticeably, but Minbeck felt it, as if the word had found resonance. We did not know exactly what it means to be a being of your world. We know it only through those who speak with us. There were few heralds. Their stories were short. What happened to the previous heralds? A long pause. Their architecture did not withstand it. The border requires constant presence, and your medicine closed the openness necessary for contact. Or they did not accept medicine, and then openness became destructive without control. The balance is very narrow. Minbeck thought about 6 years with pills and diaries, about Dr. Park Yoon, about how he had never missed an appointment without a valid reason, about how he had considered it weakness dependence on chemistry and learned to consider it discipline. I found balance, he said. We know. That is why you are here. That is why you are the first herald in a very long time who entered and speaks. What do you want from me? We do not want. We offer. A herald who has understood the nature of the border can support it intentionally, not simply by existence, by action. The rifts that open, you can close them from the inside, not from outside. This is more reliable. It does not tear but stitches. Difference? Closing from outside is like sealing a crack with a bandage. Closing from inside is like knitting a bone. The first is quick, the second holds. Analyst. This explains why rifts repeat in the same areas. A bandage does not heal. This will change my life, Minbeck said, not regretting stating. Yes, it is dangerous. Yes, balance will become even more important. Without medication and control, impossible. With them, difficult, but possible. Minbeck stood in the space between worlds and thought about Dr. Park Yoon, about Kim Song-woo, about Yoon Ji, about Odai Hyun, about Han Yu-chung in the hospital room, about the dried-up Drakina by the window which did not die. I need to return and talk to people I trust, he said. I do not make such decisions alone. Pause. The patterns around changed again this time. Minbeck felt something like approval in that change. This is right. A herald who makes decisions alone falls alone. The border is supported from two sides. What you are building with your people is also a border, of another kind. I will return, Minbeck said. With an answer. We know. He turned around. Found, not with his eyes, but with the same sense, the direction to the exit. The patterns parted. The rift was where he had left it pulsing, waiting. He stepped back. 13 minutes. Kim Song-woo stood where he had stood at the edge of the group, counting the seconds it was visible on his face. When Min Baek came out of the rift, took a step forward and stopped, giving space. Yoon-ji ran up immediately professionally, without unnecessary words, raised her hands and began to look. "Phase is stable," she said after a few seconds. "Better than before entry." Surprise in her voice, as if something there aligned. "Phase destruction is impossible there," Min Baek said. He had only just understood this by saying it. There is no anti-phase there. Everything exists in one spatial rhythm there. Oh Dae-hyun stood nearby and was silent, then said briefly, "Are you all right?" "Yes, what is there?" "A lot." Min Baek looked at him, then at the others, then at Seo Min-jun. "I need to tell everyone. Not on the street properly, at a table, with notes. This is important for all of us." Seo Min-jun nodded. "Tomorrow morning. All seniors. Tomorrow morning." The rift behind Min Baek slowly, unhurriedly closed by itself, not with a jerk, as usual, but smoothly, like an eye closes. The edges came together. The light went out. Kim Song-woo approached and stood beside him. Said nothing, just stood. 17 minutes, Min Baek said. 13, Kim Song-woo answered. "I was counting. You could have waited 4 more." "I could. I did not want to." Min Baek looked at him. "Thank you." "No need." Pause. "You changed. In 13 minutes?" "Yes, I do not know how to explain. Just different." Min Baek thought about it. Perhaps Kim Song-woo saw what Yoon-ji saw in the pattern-aligned phases, calm without tension, or simply saw a person who had received answers to questions he had carried for a long time. He looked at the night sky above Seoul. The same sky yellowish from city light pollution, without stars. The same street lamps. The same plaza with benches and trees, which during the day would be full of students. Everything the same, and everything completely different. I was inside, 13 minutes by the clocks outside. Inside, time did not work the same way. Not faster and not slower, just otherwise. Writing down verbatim everything they said while I remember. Analysts recorded it, but I want to record it myself in my own words as well, because my words and analysts' words are slightly different things. Rifts are tiers in the living border between two spaces. The border is supported by heralds. There are few heralds because open architecture of perception is rare, and your medicine correctly closes it in most cases, and this creates a paradox. What helps people weakens the border. My decision to take pills and maintain balance is not a compromise. It is the only way to be a herald without destruction. They knew this. They were looking specifically for someone like that. They offer not demand to close rifts from the inside. Stitch, not seal. I did not accept the answer there. I said I would talk to people I trust. They approved this. In the morning, a conversation with everyone. With Seo Min-jun, Kim Song-woo, Yoon-ji, Oh Dae-hyun. With Dr. Park Yoon separately before the general meeting. Depth after coming out is silent. But this is the silence that happens after everything necessary has been said. Not empty full. Kiddo asked me already at home when I sat down to write, "Was it scary?" I thought and said no. He was silent. Then said, "It was for me, a little." I did not know Kiddo could be afraid. Turns out he can. Pills taken, dried up Dracaena by the window. I watered it today for the first time in 2 months. Too late, probably, but better late. We will see.